So can we start now?
Yes.
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 Alright. Assalamualaikum and good evening to everyone. Welcome for today's forum to all the panels and audience. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nolia Shafidas binti Ahmad as your moderator for today. So today we will talk about this Christchurch. Christchurch is located near the Malacca Chinatown Centre across the bridge. Is the famous Jonker Street, which is one of the most popular sightseeing attractions, also known as night market. It is 19th century Anglican church in the city of Malacca, Malaysia. It is the older functioning Protestant church in Malaysia. The Queen Victoria Fountains, it was built in 1901 by the British and is still standing as elegant as ever. This vintage water fountain is still functioning very well. So without wasting our time, I would like to ask our first panel, Ms. Ainul, why is it important to protect archaeological sites?
Okay, thank you, Miss Leah, for the good questions. Before I answer your questions, my name is Ainul Hayat binti Mazli as a panel one today. So, my answer is it is very important to protect the archaeological sites because there are many artifacts or other materials that are located within the archaeological sites. So we must keep the artifacts because they have tremendous historical values, and also as such they may be vulnerable to looting by people who see the artifact as having monetary value. For instance, one of the artifacts that can attract the attention of people who see it is the Alta Bible. This is because the Alta Bible has a cover made of brass inscribed with the passage from John in Dutch. In addition, the artifacts or materials can also be vulnerable to weather damage such as wind, rain, snow, flooding, dust, and other phenomena. Therefore, it is very important to protect and preserve the artifacts because the future generations will know about the existing the relics or artifacts. They can also learn and understanding the history of monument. If we take artifacts and destroy or damage the sites, others will not get to enjoy the same experience by doing the research. That's all from me. But I am so sorry, before we are going to the next question, can I add some information about the architecture of Christchurch?
Yeah, sure, you go on.
Okay. Most building in the Dutch square, Christchurch is built to Dutch standards. The Christchurch is built in Dutch colonial architecture style and is laid out in a simple rectangle of 82 feet 25 meter by 42 feet 30 meter. The ceiling uses to the ceiling used to 40 feet 12 meter and is spanned by wooden beams, each carved from a single tree. The roof is covered with Dutch tiles and the walls were raised using the Dutch bricks built on local lateritic blocks, then coated with the Chinese plaster. The floors of the church are paired with granite blocks, then coated with sorry, the floors of the church are paired with granite blocks originally used as ballast for merchant ships. The originally Dutch window was reduced and ornamented after the British takeover of Malacca and the porch and vestry were built only in the mid-19th century. Thank you.
Thank you, panel one. So based on Ms. Ainul's statement, is it true that artifact can be vulnerable to weather damage like air and rain, as well as historical monuments? Therefore, in my opinion, archaeological sites are important to protect because they can be a reference for future generation. So moving to the next question for panel two, what are steps taken to protect the monument?
Thank you, Miss Leah, for the question. Assalamualaikum and good evening for all of you. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Noarina binti Mohali, and I am the second panel for today. A historic building is building built in ancient time that tell the story of human evolution and give historical value that took place in our homeland. For the example of historic building in Malaysia is like our topic today is Christchurch, Malacca, and many more historic buildings. The importance of this building is preserve a tourist attraction to see for themselves the historical monument that we have. It is also useful for the younger generation to see for themselves the historic building and learn a little about the history of Malaysia. Measure to conserve historic building. There are various steps taken to protect monument in Malaysia. The first step is government need to get recognition from world bodies such as UNESCO. UNESCO stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. For example, the city of Malacca has received recognition from UNESCO as one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites in 2008. With such recognition will increase the number of tourists to come to Malacca. Therefore, similar effort can be made to upgrade other historic buildings in Malaysia. Step number 2 is special government provision. The government also need to allocate a special budget to preserve historic buildings in Malaysia. It is time for Malaysia to take steps like other developed countries to allocate funds in the national budget to preserve historic buildings. With enough money, historic buildings can be upgraded to attract outsiders to come and visit. Facilities such as rest area, eateries, and so on can be built near the location of historic buildings to facilitate people who come to visit. The last step is encouragement from private companies. In addition, the government should also encourage private companies to help the government preserve historic buildings. The government can also provide benefit to any private company that wants to help this effort. Indirectly can attract the attention to provide assistance, whether in terms of financial or physical assistance to preserve historic buildings. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you to panel 2, Miss Arina. I'm so agree with all your explanation about the statement or the method to protect the monuments. Thus, it is obviously that the authorities like governments and NGO was responsibility to ensure these monuments are always preserved. Next, my third question is to panel 3. How do we educate our children to on heritage preservation?
Okay, thank you, moderator Miss Leah. My name is Nur Khadijah binti Masran as a third panel. I will answer the question of how do we educate our children in heritage preservation. In my opinion, parents need to take their children on holiday to historical place to attract interest and cultivate a love of history and know about the importance of preserving cultural heritage. For example, the family can holiday at Kota Efamosa, Christchurch, and others. Next, we can educate our children in heritage preservation by every school need to making history as a compulsory subject for every student, which is children. The teacher also need to take an action by teaching the history subject while inserting about the importance of preservation of cultural heritage for children in learning in school. Besides that, the mass media also need to take any action to educate our children on heritage preservation by communicating in the teaching of culture by graphic. Now there, for the teaching of any topic, the understandable transmission of visual message from artwork together with that's obtained from visual reality to student in is the key point. So the children will be more interested in learning about history as well as being able to know the importance of preserving cultural heritage. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Alright, thank you to Miss Hadijah. We can understand your point about this topic, but for me, the role meant to educate our children on heritage preservation are parents and school, because it seems parents can provide a basic education to preserve public property, while the school provide extensive knowledge related to heritage conservations. So it's like interconnected to educate children. Now we back to panel one, Ms. Ainul. The question sounds like, how do we preserve cultural heritage in our country?
Thank you again, Miss Leah. I am very glad to answer this question because we already know the nation's culture, heritage, and nature history are precious and unique. We can preserve the culture heritage by the education. Education is a good way of preserving the culture heritage in our country. This is because education strategy is essential today to express the value of culture heritage inserted to the subjects available in schools. Furthermore, the students can learn more about history of monument, which is the Christ Church Malacca. For example, the student will interest to know about the history, architecture, artifacts, and so on. Besides that, media role is the best way that we can do to preserve the culture heritage in our country. Multimedia or digital system has played a major role in culture heritage preservation. This way can help the people all over the world to share their culture and historical heritage. In other words, the channels of media like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and other websites allow the society opportunity to share about what's the culture heritage that we can find in Christchurch, such as altar Bible, church bell, silver altar verses, and so on. Hence, the other people will be interested to know the culture heritage and they will love to visit the monument in Malaysia. That's all from me. Thank you.
Alright, so next we continue with panel 2, Miss Arina. How historical tourist attractions promote in Malaysia?
Thank you, Ms. Leah, for the second question. For your information, the importance of this building is preserved as a tourist attraction to see for themselves the historical monument that we have. It is also useful for the younger generation to see for themselves the historic building and learn a little about history of Malaysia. There are some many ways about how historical tourist attraction promote in Malaysia. For example, promotion of historic building. Nowadays, the mass media is able to give a great influence to the outside world. With the power of the media, they can make a larger scale promotion to come to the location of historic building. The more people know about the existence of historic place, the more lively the location in turn provide an adequate source of income to the management. Secondly, Ministry of Tourism. For example, travel package. The Ministry of Tourism needs to make a historical place one of the location that tourists should go to. Travel agents need to include historic place as one of the travel package. Indirectly can attract foreign tourists about the history of our country and increase the country's source of income and field of tourism. That's all for me. Thank you.
Alright, Miss Arina, you're welcome. I agree with the point related to the mystery of tourism. It is very relevant for me. Apart from that, we can also attract tourism to our country by showing them the Malaysian society that is harmony with its culture and custom, as well as attraction. Moving forward to the next question for panel 3. Why should we preserve the place or monument?
Thank you, Miss Leah, for the good question. In my opinion, we should preserve the place or monument because all buildings teach us about the history that happened before we were born and promotes respect for those who live in different time and different societies. For example, Christchurch was built by the Dutch when they took possession of Malacca from the Portuguese. It's one of the Malacca's most defining structure. Architectural monument generates pride in our culture and heritage, making us truly unique across the world. In addition to serving as a place of worship and Protestant believers, there are also several magistrates and priests buried in this church space. Other than that, the architectural monuments are attractive for tourists from local or abroad, so it is important to develop our country economy. Older buildings are frequently constructed using unique and special materials such as hardwood, marble, or antique brick. It's possible that there are content details and characteristics that are no longer available, such as beautiful facades, unique glasswork, or copper lining. Many people believe that older buildings have their own uniqueness and special character as a result of this factor, making them more attractive than modern buildings. For example, Christchurch in Malacca using original Dutch design art. Being a center of research and education is also the factor why we should preserve the monument. The process of archaeology and research can be carried out with the discovery of all artifacts that are valuable in the history of our country. So that's why the uniqueness of monument need to preserve. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to Ms. Khadija for the clarifications. So here the last question for me to the panels. What if there were no monuments?
Monuments provide an especially useful educational service because they serve double duty. Do you guys can imagine if there were no monuments, even one only in Malaysia? In my opinion, if Malaysia does not have any monuments for tourists to visit, this will affect our country's economy to decline because there was no currency investment from tourists. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Miss Ainul. But in my opinion, if there were no monuments, it will also have an impact on future generations, where there's younger people may be less enthusiastic in um, in embracing the heritage and the spirit of nationalism toward the country. The heritage and history of this country is also being eroded by the increasingly diverse modernizations, and it may be that these young people will not believe or appreciate the struggle of the country's soldiers in liberating Malaya from the colony of foreigners. Last but not least, I guess this is the ending for today's forum. So I would like to thank for all the panels and audience for the cooperations. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you.